All right, so at this point, we assume we're live. Thank you to anyone who's tuning in or watching this later. Conor McGoy from Inside Up Games here, talking with my good friend Jordan Danielsson, who, like all of us, is home during this pandemic, doing his best to manage life and work at the same time. Jordan, who's
Doing my best to pretend we don't have kids
yeah, exactly. Yes,
running around the house.
running around the house screaming. I'm gonna have some show up back here, I'm pretty sure, at some point. They just got home. I got home from school about 20 minutes ago. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Jordan did the amazing art and graphic design for my first game. What got me and Inside Up Games into this industry, Summit, the board game, and then of course, because that's how heavy the game is. He did the Yeti, which, fun fact, Yeti is the most often randomly bought game from us at conventions, where people walk up and just try to buy this, having no idea that it's actually an expansion for Summit. And every time we're like, no, 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 it has to go with that game. It's just an expansion. But everybody loves that artwork. And then what we're here to talk about today actually is Summit Team. So that is the second expansion, which just is releasing at Spiel this weekend. And we'll talk about it in more detail for the actual mechanics, but we will talk about kind of mine and Jordan's working relationship during this live stream here. So I'll kind of put this up in the background and we'll chat. So yeah, so Jordan, I just blabbered for a little while there, but from your point of view, how did the kind of this Summit journey start for you?
For you, so obviously, me and Connor had met long before we actually started working on this game. So we had done some more corporate, less fun work together, and then Connor had this idea for this game. So he had approached me, given our past relationship working together, and we both kind of thought it was a fun adventure to start, not knowing it would be an entire year of our lives spending
At
a
least,
couple days
at
a week
least.
together, to our wives and girlfriends' dismay. Uh, but yeah, it was fun. We didn't know when the end would come, so we just kind of kept plugging
Yeah,
away and kept working and drinking scotch together. And no, I mean, no, not that.
never, never.
Just purely work,
Water,
purely
just
work.
water.
And yeah, and yeah,
And
eventually we got through it. And
the one thing which I'll add to
now,
here for any existing publishers or first-time designers, the one thing that I had no idea on the value of is, as I mentioned quickly, Jordan is both an illustrator and, well, an illustrator and amazing artist. I don't know if those are technically different things, but he's both,
I would classify those
right?
together.
Okay, so artist,
Illustration.
illustrator, but also a graphic designer. And at the time, it's like you just think, okay, this is just how it is. It's great. But the meticulous detail with which Jordan approached the project, and knowing that instead of just building these art assets, knowing how the assets would then be used. And again, like he sat down and he played the games with me, so he understood how the game worked. He understood, right, the mechanics, what I was trying to do, the world I wanted to build. So he had all of these building blocks, and he would spend all this time like making sure that the symmetry on this rope was perfect. And I'd be like, okay, but like the rope's going to be this big, but then not realizing that that rope could be used in this instant or as a divider on the page or as, in a graphic. So he
Or the
painstakingly,
border of the box,
exactly,
right? Like we reuse that little element
so many times.
50 times. Yeah.
And even now, like 4 years later, because we started in 2016, 4 years later, I'm still able to use these assets that Jordan created during the process. So two things. First of all, if you're looking for someone, reach out to Jordan. I would always recommend working with him. And number two, that ability to have two people in one. Since then, I've only been able to do it a couple times, but having an artist or having a graphic designer that understands the other side so well for that meld of things. So like this is out of my brain, but the package is thanks to Jordan, right? That ability to kind of just rope everything in as one and create stuff. And he also, I mean, on a side note, helped with a crazy amount of just like base knowledge. So he helped me like I'd never used InDesign before. He helped me through InDesign, gave me pointers, like helped me grow, which I've now carried through the business. So again, anyone looking for Jordan Danielsson, I'll get him to give all of his credentials at the end before we sign out, so you can reach out to him. But to get back into it, yeah. So Jordan's right. I basically had created this game. Jordan had done amazing work for me on my previous business side. and all sorts of stuff. Like he had done website design, business card, my truck decals, my hockey goalie mask, my wife's tattoo. Like he is an insanely talented man. His talent knows no limit. So I reached out to him, being like, "Hey, like, does this interest you?" And he's like, "Sure, why not? Let's give it a try." So we just kind of sat down and worked through it together, and it was awesome. And every step of the way, like it was just amazing to see him write and to see him work and to see him like the stuff appear in front of me. Like I alluded to this in my earlier talk today when I was talking to Reese, who did Seven Souls and Sea Change with me, and another amazing artist. Is that's one of my favorite parts of every project is seeing what's in my brain come to life in someone else's hands. Because
Can I just jump in and say you came to me when it was still a pizza box,
actually, funny you should say.
which was the best thing for me
Don't
because it was a clean slate. It was a
fall on
blank
me.
canvas. I went to Connor's house and we played it on a pizza box, and that's how the entire game began.
this this is quite literally. You can almost see it. The
That's that
square.
original grid.
That's the original grid system. The halfway camp. My original notes on the side. And then while we're chatting, and George's 100% right. So, and if you read the about section of our website, it's true. Like, I needed a dose of awesomeness. I was sick of looking at a pizza box. So Jordan's like, yeah, no problem. And like, because he's insane, whipped up all sorts of stuff to just get us going. And then we'd add it to I think I threw out like 6 boxes of like prototype steps that we had went through. And I've saved a chunk of it here. I don't even want to pull it
I
out. It's
think
so
that's
heavy.
important for people to know too. Is it was kind of a cool little piece by piece. Like we figured out how the board was going to work. Then we figured out what could the tiles look like and how would that rope work on the tiles to connect to every different type of tile.
Yeah,
So we would make real pieces that were so it could be real tiles on the pizza box.
exactly.
And then we're starting to see it come to life. And then okay, now where can we put um whatever like the weather bar or what like so we slowly just made it more and more real while playing on still the prototype, and it just slowly kind of came to life in front of us. So
And
it was really cool.
it was super cool. And the nice thing was is because we had worked together so long, at one point we went down for a trip to Toronto to help like promote it. And in my mind, it sounds bad, but Jordan and I are from a small town in northern Ontario, and we still kind of have that small town vibe, which is great. But also like you worry that how's it going to hold up somewhere else. So Jordan and I went down to Toronto to test the game out there and to bring the game. And at the time, if I won't reach, it's gonna fall on me. But anyways, we had this like very, like we had the look that I thought I wanted for the game, which is like your very stereotypical,
Kind of cartoony. It was
cartoony.
yeah,
Yeah, whereas
just
like it
like
was,
bold line work, kind of basically not this angular look
yeah,
that we landed on. It was just a very different kind of stereotypical illustrated
exactly.
artwork, which was coming together. We both liked where it was headed, but it was just missing a certain
It wasn't
uniqueness.
unique, as I was gonna say. It was just like it looked great. It was beautiful, but it was just like, okay, there's a nice looking drawing. And then we're on the plane, literally, and I'll never forget this. I'm on one side of the aisle, and Jordan's on the other side of the aisle. We're sitting in our seats, and I'm working away on my computer, right, getting ready for this weekend that we have to test the game. And Jordan's over there in his sketchbook, and he's just like, and all of a sudden he like flips a page, and he's like, and I look over, and he just hands me a piece of paper, and I open it up, and it's one of our characters that he's like redrawn over top in this style. So, and if I remember right, it was this uh, what ended up being this final character. So this kind
So
of
those angular lines, I just went over top of every single line that we had already drawn in a smooth kind of normal way, but I just retraced over it using only straight lines, kind of thinking it could echo the triangular tiles and the grid that we already had. So that's what kind of just somehow I guess developed while we were just fooling around trying to figure out what could we bring to this that we could apply to everything and make sure everything looks like it's part of the same collection.
exactly. So
Because
it carries through everywhere, and without actually any roundedness, right? It's all these straight lines. And as soon as I saw it, I
yeah,
remember
there's
just
no
like,
curves.
yes, yes, yep, okay. redo the stuff we've done. This is the uniqueness. This is
Yeah.
the flair, and it is what continues to grab people's attention on the shelf. 4 years later, the game still moves because people walk by and be like, "Oh, what is that?"
And to be honest, it was almost like an easy way to make everything match because I could spend all the time in the world trying to make a semi-realistic illustrated rope, and every single or like every card, every item card would have taken me probably 3 or 4 times as long to do semi-realistic drawings of every item Connor had dreamed up. So the fact that we stumbled across this style made it kind of, I could hide some crimes by just doing very slashy, as long as it looks like a tent and as long as it looks like a jacket. I don't have to worry about it fitting in with our style because that was so easy by just using these straight lines. So it was a happy accident that just made everything fall together
Yeah,
and continues to work for the expansions. Now, right away, those expansions look like they're part of this game because it's
exactly.
got that same style. It's kind of got overdrawn lines too. So it's
Yeah,
not just angles and straight lines. The lines shoot out too far in spots, and it's just those little hints that it's drawn by the same person for the same game, and it's kind of subconscious, but I think it works for continuity.
so that was the Yeti expansion, the first expansion. So these are based on a combination of real people, whereas actually all of the other player mats you've seen so far are real people. So that was part of the original Kickstarter. Those first 6 people were actually real people that Jordan turned into this art style of character. And then
That was my fear with this style. Was how do I make a portrait that passes by somebody who spent a lot of money to become this character to support the game, and we wanted them to feel like they could tell people this is me,
yeah,
but still fit. So that was the one part I was nervous about, is can we get every character approved
yeah.
drawn with straight lines? And we got lucky. I think
I,
nobody really had any.
I wouldn't say it was lucky. That was skillful because if you see them and you see the real person, like it looks like them, right?
It's arguably them for sure. Like somebody wouldn't be like, no, it's not. Like you could see. I know what all the people look like because
yeah,
obviously I was given the real photos. But if people were to see the real photos and see well, none of them are wearing winter clothes, so there's definitely like an added fun level to it
yeah,
where we got to play with their colors and what their jacket would look like, and like the military style. So we added just those little elements to that character, and
yeah.
the beach guy there, like that was a fun one where how do you make a guy in Bermuda shorts prepared to climb a mountain? There
Yeah.
we go. So we had him over his snow pants and stuff. Like we just had so much fun
So really, Jordan
bringing
had
these.
the pictures, reference sketches. We asked for full body pictures, and headshots. They were allowed to pick the color that they wanted to be for the base one. So, for example, the orange, blue. So he worked those colors. For example, the orange character, she wanted to be orange, and they were able to pick the country. So, using those 3 pieces, Jordan had to make all these people easily distinguishable in the game.
And sent to them personally and say, "Is this good? can we
Yes.
go ahead with this?"
Are you okay with what we've done here? Which is
Yeah.
awesome. So to tease it, because we're supposed to be talking about this, I realized. So this is the new expansion. Again, I'm not going to go into the rules or the mechanics of it. So this is basically an idea, and again, without tipping our hand too much, there's still another project that's been long in the works that Jordan and I are planning on working for. And because that one exists, we're conscious of, or Jordan, it was his idea, was conscious of the color palettes that we use in each game. So knowing the palettes that we're going to be using for this other game, we decided what palettes could we use here. So this was, again, Jordan's genius coming up with this. And what I love is so much about this is in the teams expansion, you're playing in a team mode, obviously, but you can play in a team mode where your team is helping another team, or your team is competing against the other team. So I love that simple art just because, is he helping or is he hurting?
Yeah,
It's
he could be
so,
letting go or he could be grabbing him.
right?
So yeah, that was fun too.
It's so
And
perfect.
again, it's those subtleties that we know, and maybe some people may or may not pick up,
Yeah.
but
And I bet
your
you
eyes will see it one way.
And I bet you if we there'd be some sort of fun test to do to understand someone's psyche by asking them helping or hurting, and then depending on what they checked, you would answer a whole bunch of questions about their personality. So,
Yeah, exactly.
so that's that, and
It could
then
be in all the psychologists.
exactly. And again, like he carried through everything. So when I say having a graphic designer and an artist is amazing, like so he knew, he saw how he was going to do the layouts for the rules, what fonts carry through, what typography carries through. He came up with an entire um, what's the word I'm looking for here for Jordan for all the not the iconography, but you made like a typography in a way of all of our symbols.
Yeah, and what I would say to other people is that's where having a graphic designer comes in handy because they will kind of create a style sheet of sorts that like so what your headlines look like, what your body copy looks like, your subheaders and all that. So even if you have a separate artist and a separate designer, if they're both doing their jobs, then they'll work together seamlessly.
Yeah.
But it's the designer's job to make everything displayed cleanly in a proper hierarchy and things like that. And that's what I'm trained to do professionally. And the art side is just something I've always done and loved. So it's I guess my formal training that has helped me create that legibility and just cleanliness, I guess.
Yeah, which is
But
what I
then the
think.
art side is just being the asset creator at the same time. So I don't have to communicate with an artist and be like, "Can you draw me a close up of a tile so I can put it beside the rule book?" I can just do that, which is kind of convenient more
Yeah.
than anything.
Yeah,
But
it's awesome.
you could definitely get away with having two people and complete the same project.
But the
It's
nice
just a
thing
lot more
too
communication.
about having that designer is that who understands their tools and is using the proper tools is that Jordan would be showing me something like that, and I'd be like, what do you think if we did this? And then he would know that instead of redoing stuff, because he had already built it correctly, he could be like, oh, that's simple, and click a button, and then it would affect everything of that. So, for example, if the body type wanted to be changed, he could click a button knowing that it would change the body type everywhere. He wasn't going through like I do, line by line, highlighting, dragging, clicking, scrolling, like he just does
Yeah.
it. So again, like I can't see it
And that's
highly enough.
something I'm also guilty of not doing, but knowing we had so many pieces to complete. It's called paragraph styles and character styles right in InDesign. So we just made sure we kind of programmed those properly. So as we were going and say one headline was way more characters than the other and it wrapped over to two lines, but we didn't want that. We could bump down the header size 2 points and it would do it to every single header, and we wouldn't have to go through and reduce the size of every single one because one happened to read a little longer than the other.
And and
So
again, it sounds like part of him might be kidding, but believe me, like Jordan went through every single card with me and like would check the spacing and the sizing of the letter, and I learned what kerning meant and
yeah.
all these little things that you'd be like, does that really matter? And then he would fix it and be like, oh wow, it does matter. Yep.
And I think the font we used was particularly bad. Some fonts are really good at programming in the proper letter spacing, and the one we happened to use was just the worst.
Of course.
Like some letters would be super spaced out and some would be really tight, and it was just
And
like
there was also special
we literally
characters
had
that
to
were
go through
missing.
every letter
Yeah.
of the headlines, not every letter of the card, every letter of the headlines, and tidy it up.
Yeah.
Oh man,
It was
it
insane.
was a lot of time.
It was in work.
Yeah.
And then inside the box, we have, you've seen them already because I have them taken apart, but these are the characters that we saw. Again, two more real characters from the actual Kickstarter. So those are real backers, real people. And this is actually a backer's father who was in the military, which what Jordan was alluding to before. The military look to the uniform. Still climbing
And
the ladder.
another thing to note too, everyone's size, like everyone's height is proportionate to each other. So
Yeah.
that's another thing. So some people look like they're too small on the back of the card, but that's the actual height of the person
Yeah,
relative to the tallest person. So yeah, they're all to scale of each other
that is their
based on the actual
actual
heights of
heights.
the actual backers.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like I mean, it's probably just too nerdy for us, but that's the kind of crap that I love, right? If you're gonna do it, you do it properly. And then
Yeah, it's overkill. Like we could have just sized them nicely for the back of each card, but we wanted every card to be able to be lined up, and you could see who's the tallest, who's the shortest,
yeah,
and how they would line up. So all their baselines are level across every expansion and the main game. So you can line them up on your table while you're selecting characters, and you'll be able to get a sense of how tall they are, their weight, everything just by visually looking at them.
and then how it ties into their abilities. Because again, I mean, we're not getting into this now, but basically you can see they're all individual player mats with different stats and abilities. So that actually plays into their character, their personality, their type, their size, so on and so forth. And then we have climbing ladders. So this is what the unique the expansion created was new types of tiles. So these are actually square, as you can see, and these got played over top of the triangular ones. So I had the basic idea of how it worked, and I said, okay, Jordan, we need to make this work within Summit, so we still have to make the existing ropes on previous tiles work, so that when these are played into our existing game, it doesn't feel weird. Everything still
Yep,
works.
that's that rope. That's that rope being used 4 million times more. That's got to be our most used asset
Oh,
for
for sure,
sure.
it's crazy, right? And it works, and it will work no matter how it's played, how it's placed.
And a fun little design thing for anybody that's interested is every knot is different than the actual rope too, so we can place the knots where we want. The rope can be tiled as long as we need it. But I think we even did a couple knots and switched them up maybe. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah. I think there's at least 3 or 4 knots. I think.
Yeah. So we kind of shuffle those up too. But
And
yeah,
then
we
and then all the
in
icons.
a perfect world, it would have been nice to have no knots on that, but we needed to identify how many spaces you're moving and things like
Exactly.
that. So
Yeah. And then again, poor Jordan, as I came up, and I mean, this as my first game, I designed it with the game in mind, not the art or graphic design or cost. So then, poor Jordan, I'm like, okay, and then we have an event called Falling Rocks. He's like, okay, so I have to draw a freaking token that says Falling Rocks. But there's also a body. Okay, I'll draw a body. There's prayer flags. Okay, I guess I have to. So poor Jordan was just like this list of like things like this and that and this and that and this and but the reason why it's amazing is it all flows. Like none of them look like they don't belong. They all share a style.
we need to do a tally of how many actual icons we created for this. Like it's
It's crazy.
got to be close to 100 now.
Oh, probably there has to be over. Like there's a ton. There's a ton of them.
Yeah. But the benefit to iconography is it's international, and that was one of Connor's big things is it was going to get translated. So we knew we needed to create an icon system that would work in all languages, obviously. So
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was definitely time well spent,
Yeah.
but didn't mean it was any less work.
No, exactly. It was, and
Yeah,
he's still working with me, so I didn't drive him too crazy.
yeah, we're still good. We're still cool. So
So yeah, so I mean,
we'll see what the next one looks like.
yeah, the next one's going to be almost as big, if not bigger. So before I just wrap it up, again, my last little things in case you're tuning in late is that this is Jordan Danielsson. Obviously, he is the artist and graphic designer behind everything in the Summit series that we've done and stuff coming out eventually that I need to get my work done so he can get his work done. As you can tell from the pieces of art behind him in his own home, he's a phenomenal artist. Anyone looking for a graphic designer or artist, illustrator, or the complete package, feel free to reach out to Jordan. I would highly recommend working with him, both from his skill level but also his work ethic. So, Jordan, what's the best way that people could find you?
Lostart.ca is my website, and I have a contact form right on there, which comes right to my email. So that's the easiest way. Just lostart.ca and find the contact form, or Jordan at lostart.ca is my email. So feel free to shoot me an email.
And
Any questions you may have, I'm happy to answer them. But yeah, even if you just want to say hey,
and
Jordan at lostart.ca.
he's got amazing social media, which again you can check out at Lost Art. And he does amazing work both I don't know how to say this properly, but from the artistic, like creative side, of the gaming world, but he also does it like he does it professionally for big corps, for business, for small business, for personal, for like if you're if you know if you're the
Clothing
advertise.
design. Clothing design's a big thing that I'm into. So if you're looking for an illustration for your shirts or any kind of promo materials, that's something I'm really into. Is just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
illustration for gear and for clothes. But
Yeah, and
I mainly took on this board game project as portfolio work. It's something I had never done before, but I figured it's the same skill set just translated to a different medium. So that's why I took it on and I loved it.
yeah.
So happy to do more.
Yeah, exactly. So again, highly recommended by me and by Inside of Games. And you reach out to him for anything you can think of, any sort of design, graphic, illustrative work. He's a very creative man, and he should be doing more board games. Just making sure he always has time for me.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, we are almost out of time, so we'll sign off here. Thanks for tuning in. And like I say, thanks, Jordan, for all your help and your friendship over the years. And I'll be harassing you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, we're going to end
See
the
you guys.
stream. Thank you.